and welcome to Angling For You. Today you join me at the fantastic Birkwood fisheries for a spot of meat fishing, and this video is just basically going to be about how to fish the meat simply. It's a method that a lot of people fish and a lot of people get wrong, and I'm here to show you some pointers and some interesting sort of techniques that will make it super simple to fish and super simple to catch. I'll just get this skimmer unhooked. Actually more of a hybrid. Nice fish to start. Let's get him back and we'll get through these this rig. Right guys, so meat fishing, you can do it all over the vent. It's a massive thing this time of year, and it's great all over the country for all species like meat. Now at the moment it's sort of early afternoon. I'm not expecting too many carp in, more after the skimmers and sort of the nice roach. I'll probably pick up the odd carp in between. So the setup that I've got quite a big expanse of water, so I'm not really fussed about losing that many fish. I've got loads of room to play with, so I've only got a nice light 8 hollow. If we're going down the edge, I'd definitely beef that up. We'll go into that later on, fingers crossed. We're going to be doing a margin one later on today. So starting with this 8 hollow, as you can see, really nice and soft. That goes down to a 0.3 shanty float. Now I prefer a shanty float. It's a real stable float in open waters. If we're going down the edge, I probably have a normal style margin float, or even a dibber float sometimes, depending on if it's windy. But I go with a 0.3. It's a really stable float. Really important to make sure you got the correct amount of rubbers on there. What I notice a lot of people is they only have one rubber on. Now I've got 2 rubbers on. It might be difficult to see, but there's one here and then there's one here. And what I do, I don't know if you can see that on camera, but there's a slightly overhang of the rubber, and that just means that you can't tangle that line round it. That tiny little bit of overhang just stops that, which makes it a lot better for tangles. So we've got 0.15 reflow power all the way through. There's no hook link on this, it's all the way through. We've got 2 number 8s which are just underneath the float, and I'll just move that down to a number 8, another number 8 which is about 8 inches away from that, another one which is about 3 inches from that, and then right towards the hook about 4 inches from that we've got a number 10, and that just allows the meat to fall steady through the water. We've got a PR27 Preston Innovations hook, lovely hook, really sharp, great for hooking the meat, super strong, never flatten out. It's got a slight bowed sort of broader shape to it, which allows us to hook the meat really easy. Going on to the meat, actually I'll hook this while I'm this way around. So I'll go into the types of meat and what we do with them in preparation in a second, but you can see I've cubed up the pieces of meat, and they're roughly about an 8mm cube, because it's just trying to eradicate the really small fish. And when you hook through the corner of the meat and out, so the hook is displayed just on the corner, so when the fish grab it, they're grabbing that hook point nearly every time. Obviously if you're going to catch smaller fish, just dot this down smaller and smaller and smaller until you've got the equivalent. Now I'm expecting that size of that skimmer or carp to take that, so I'm wanting that to sort of reflect on it, so that 8mm piece of meat is about right. So I'm just gonna move on to the other thing which is important, and that's a cad pot. Now as you all know from watching a lot of my videos, I really do like the Preston Innovations cad pots. I think they're great. I'll show you how they get on. Everyone's got their own way of and pot that they like. It comes with loads of little tops and bits and bobs like that, but it's basically, it goes on, it's really soft spongy sort of material, so it don't do anything to your pole, and all you do is just stretch that elastic out and put it into the other side and let go, and that's it, and that's on, and it's not going to come off. You can slide it up and down, it's super strong on your pole and it doesn't come off. That's really important when you're fishing, when you're fishing with a cad pot. We've got it sort of 8 inches off the top, just so then nothing loops over, which means you just need to reach out a little bit when you tip it in. But other than that, you know, that's the rig. So I'll put the rig down and we'll have a look at the bait. Right guys, so bait, this is where things start to go a little bit tipsy-turvy. Now with meat, there's loads of things you can do. You can get a meat cutter and cut them uniform sizes. Some people riddle the meat through a thick riddle to get sort of like a grated almost texture of the meat. Some people, as I do sometimes, I whiz up the meat in a Magimix to make sort of almost like a slop, which is what I prefer down the edge. But for out in the middle of the pond, this is what I like to do. But number one on top of all this is I like to soak in water. So if you can see that, I soak all my meat in the water, and the reason I do that is because there's a lot of fat content in the meat. So what this effectively does is dilute that fat content, so it allows it to sink quicker. So this meat is in different chunks and different sizes, so I've roughly chopped this by hand, and you can see there's flakes of it. There's some 10 mils, there's some 8 mils, some 6 mils, just various different sizes. And the type of meat is also important. So this meat here is chopped meat, so you get it in your tins, really cheap stuff, and what it basically is chopped up and then compressed into a tin. The reason why why I'm telling you this is that that's no good for the hook. You can hook it, but you won't get consistently and it will break up. So the other thing that you need to do is buy a tin of Spam, or sort of the sort of sausages that you can buy that have been squeezed into those red cases. Anything that's really dense and spongy, like Spam. So because you can see, it's got a bit more rigidity to it, and it's not breaking to pieces. That's really important. And again, we soak that. And as you can see next to it, I've got my trusty knife. Now, so I've cut these up pretty similar size, but if you're getting, if there's no carp about and you want to just trim them up for a smaller size fish, you can quickly do it, and you've got a smaller size bait, and that's why I have the knife around with me. Now this little baby from Monster Baits, and Craig, who's on the camera at the moment, will also vouch for me, it stinks, but in the best of ways. So what I do is when I've prepared my meat, put it in the water, I go through with a glug of this in both, and that just enhances the flavour. It's got a few essential flavours in there, and a few betaine and bits and bobs like that, but it just gives it a little bit of added attraction. You can also add your flavourings, what you get in your squeezy bottles. Monster Baits do their own, or you can get your lava for your colour and stuff, that Sono Baits and all that kind of business. They're all great. The third part of it, which is also my feed, are these 4mm pellets. Now if you're in a fishery where you used to use fishery pellets, you need to use fishery pellets. My big tip is, when you get the pellets, wherever you get them from, just drop a couple in the water. If they sink, you're golden. If not, you need to maybe just give them 30 seconds in some water and then drain them, just to allow them to sink. So many people are watch and I think they're feeding the swim, and what's actually happening is floating away is all the bait. So that's again really important. These sink, so I'm fine with that. But if they don't, just give them a quick soak, 30 seconds, and they'll be fine and they'll sink. So that's the bait, really simple. Just a couple of little pieces of information that can really help you get it right. Let's get round and let's see if we can catch some. Right guys, so as you saw before, I hooked on the meat on the corner, so that's out my way. So what I want to do is get a little bit of this slop, this chopped meat, not too much. We've fed 2 pots to start the session. We may top that up later on if fish start to come thick and fast. But what I'm doing with every cast is just feeding a small amount of bait. Now unfortunately with meat, you will get pestered by smaller fish, and the other thing is you will have to ship in and ship out, because that's what happens with meat. It's not something that stays on all the time, although having the Spam on is a lot better in regards to shipping out, because with a chopped meat sometimes even that can just drop off. So what I'm doing now is I've put the mix in, and that's going to fall steady through. I'm trying to keep my line straight and lowering it down, because you tend to sometimes get liners or foul hookers if you don't, and we're just trying to lower that rig down nice and straight and to the bottom. And you can see there's fish straight on there. Now sometimes you get these little dibber bites, they're smaller fish. Try and sit on your hands for that. You're looking for a bite that just goes straight under. You see those little dibbers, they're small fish. still small fish, and you're still going to have to strike at some small fish, because skimmers, they're notorious for gentle bites, as are crusions, which is a few of them in here as well. Oh, that's a very small fish. Don't quite know how that one actually took that big piece of meat, but another important thing, even though you could probably swing these in, is to use your net when fishing. I feel it's important. I mean, there's sometimes, you know, that you use the smaller fish and you can swing them in and stuff like that. But I think it's important that you try your best to get every fish in the net. Actually, some venues, you've got to do it as part of fishery rules. But the part of any fishing is just being methodical and just keeping that feed. Even though I know right now that there's I'm going to get mithered by skimmers and smaller fish, there is always a chance of those carp coming in, and the likelihood of catching one is quite high. So you've just got to persist. Maybe you're on a venue where it's all carp, and I do fish a lot of venues like that. And right now, if I were fishing Oaks, for example, I'd be catching F1 after F1 using this method, as I have done in a lot of times there. But it just depends where you're fishing. The ethos of this video is not to catch tons and tons of carp, although we all enjoy catching them. It's really just to show you the principles and how to fish the meat and fish it easily and get the best out of it. Now, when you're fishing it up to sort of islands and things like that, again, just follow the same principles of how you feed it. Just gently lowering your rigging, and that goes same for margin fishing as well. Just nice and gently lowered in. He's a bit faster back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cad pot some in, and I'm just going to show you how to do that with the cupping kit. So I know all of you that are watching, you might not all have a cupping kit, so before you start you would do it with a little, you can get a little bit bigger ones than that, a little bit bigger cad pots you could put on without your rig on, and you could ship that out before and do it that way. If you haven't and you want to use a cupping kit, as a lot of people have with poles, go and watch my Guru cupping kit one, because it's a great piece of kit, is this. But anyway, so I'm going to give a full cup, so over half with meat, and I'm going to top that right to the top with some pellets, and that's just going to keep the attraction there. I'm trying to put a bit of bait down, and then hopefully that'll attract the carp into the swim. Important when you use cupping kits, especially if you've got something heavy in it, just keep it as low as you can to the ground. Some of these cupping kits you can get now are floating, and you can slide them across the top of the water. You know, I just keep them quite low to the ground. Now, I've got a far part marker, which is the guy on the far bank in the red top. As soon as I hit the end of the pole on my hand, then I'm shipping and I'm dropping it in on top of that. So a good piece of information is to have that next to you all the time, so that's there just in my reach, just resting at the top of my trolley, my bait, my brolly. I've got connections and stuff like that when I'm fishing matches and things like that, but nice and safe on there, right all to hand. I've got my little top there to stop it from pole blowing about in the wind. I would say if you're going to buy a roller, or you want to invest in rollers, you'd have to spend too much. I would really recommend a roller that I've got, or a roller similar, which is a double roller. And the reason is, especially when you start to fish longer poles, you can ship two sections, you can break it down into two pieces, and you will able to find that it's a lot easier to control behind you. And that's just a little tip that I've struggled before with single rollers. They're still wide, but when you're trying to run another section behind and the roll the other one's off, it just gets a bit fiddly. But having those two splits is so much easier. Another piece now, we're not going to feed any more on this drop, just purely because we've just fed that cup. Just let that go down. I do see a few signs across the top of the water that there is a few carp about, so I'm hoping that they're gonna get their heads down and have a go. Just tried to let it go a little bit longer, but that little one was taking it regardless. Still a few little fish here. It's a lovely little roach though. No problem catching those. They're beautiful. Nice little skimmer. Another fish, just a small skimmer. Let's get him a nut, put him back in, see if we can catch another. Into another fish. This one feels like another carp. Turn around and get him towards the net. It's not. It's another skimmer. It's self-fouled. Into another skimmer. Feels like a skimmer. It's like unfortunately they've settled on the bait, and sometimes that's just the way it goes when you're fishing the meat. We did have that one nice carp, but plenty of silvers, and there's no doubt I'm going to continue to fish it, and no doubt I'll catch more carp later on in the session. Let's just get him a nut. But I hope this video has been helpful to you, and just like I'd say a massive big thanks for us reaching the 1 million views. I mean, it's more than I could have ever imagined, to be honest, when starting the Facebook or the YouTube. Just incredible, and I appreciate everybody that's watching. That's fantastic. Yeah, just join us. Get your friends on there. Join us on the Facebook group, Angling For You. Loads and loads of stuff on there. We'll be starting to come into friendly matches, Angling For You matches, where there's no money at stake. It's just all done for prizes. On the Instagram, Angling_For You, if you want to put your photos and things like that on. obviously we've got the new shirts and the new merch on there. These shirts are super light, really nice for this time of year, summer. They only cost 25 quid, and that's the logo and your name personalised on there. Just get me in the DMs either on Facebook, Instagram, or just in the comments on YouTube, and I'll give you the information to send to PayPal, and then we can get it sent straight to your house, and that's not a problem. Just again, thank you so much for getting us to 1 million views. Let's take it on to 2 million. Thanks a lot for everything, guys. Timelines.